a lot of us go into different. Good morning. My name is Margaret Durgan, and I'm a member of the board of ORUUC. Welcome to everyone, and especially to people here for the first time or back for the first time in a long time. If that describes you, I invite you to consider doing two things. First of all, if you're on Facebook, please join the ORUUC Facebook group where the congregation communicates among ourselves through the week. Second of all, at the end of this hour, a lot of us go into different small groups for the second hour. You're welcome to any of those listed on the slide at the end of the service, but we particularly invite you to stay right here in this Zoom room for a session of inquirers, our session for newcomers to get connected and learn more. Every week for years, our congregation has sent half of the offering out the door and into the community to support a mission or a ministry that we support. For the month of September, our Split the Plate recipient is the Fresh Fruit for Kids ministry, whose home is here at ORUUC. There are kids throughout Oak Ridge without enough food to last through the weekend, so they receive a weekly supplement of food to make sure they have enough. The Fresh Fruit ministry adds to that effort by making sure each of those kids has fresh fruit added to their weekend nourishment. When the offering comes around, please give generously.
Hi, everyone. There is another announcement to add today as well. This is Jake Morrill, one of the ministers here at ORUUC. The announcement is one of celebration. This past Friday, the Stone Soup Ministry celebrated its 10th anniversary. That means 12,000 meals sent out into the community, not only to fill hungry bellies, but also to create community, the wealth of community that happens when people of generous hearts and great imaginations come together to share in this kind of effort. The Stone Soup Ministry, through these 12,000 meals and 10 years of every final Friday each month without skipping a month, has brought about the kind of community where people who come to eat a meal are also invited to enter into the kinds of relationships in which everyone's names are known and preferences and stories are upheld and honored and cherished. So thank you to the Stone Soup Ministry folks. Thank you to all of you who in so many ways, whether Ecumenical Storehouse or Tabitha's Table, or in different personal and quieter ways, are reaching out in the community, not retreating even in a time of pandemic, and making this world a more loving and more just place. Blessings all.
Something overlooked in the creative process is the place of rest and celebration. In the Hebrew creation story, God rested, and as with the other 6 days of work, this rest day, too, was very good. Pushing ourselves and focusing on productivity robs us of an important part of what it means to be human. Rest and celebration are necessary. So as you create and produce and go about the creative process of living, take time to also rest and celebrate.
In the world of the driven, Let us be drawn in.
Let your love be a given.
Let us be drawn in.
To imagine, to dream,
to create, to redeem.
For the sake of the living, let us be drawn in.
The world is turning, the path is bending, the heart is breaking, and the soul is moving. Change is afoot like color in the trees, fade to fire, flash, and let fall. To drift to the earth, to sink into the soil like lovers in trance saying, come, come, come home to me. As we round the waves of light that hold us here for worship, may we too, like these drifting leaves we see, be attuned to that spirit saying, come home, trusting our heart's call, reminding us that it is okay for us to let go, to be made new, to fall into the great cycle that we might settle into the soil and find that sacred stillness. Now I invite you to join us for our first hymn, Find a Stillness. May we join ourselves together in song.
As you know, and better than I, this is the time in our Sunday service when, in the not-so-distant past, you'd form a line to drop stones in water or write comments and what is called the Book of Life. Obviously, that's not possible now, so we invite you to substitute that ritual with some activities that can be done in your home and shared virtually. So we ask you now to light a candle, write something in the chat box, send an email, or participate in some way that you would like. Share one word in the chat box that represents your prayer, hope, or concern. You can email your prayer requests to oruuc.community.prayers@gmail.com. The definition of worship is that which you give worth to. Today's theme is that of peace, so I encourage you to put a word into that chat box that brings you peace or represents it for you. Help us build an altar constructed of peace and give worth to those moments we now share. I'll now read from the prayer requests and the prayers of the community. Carol Bean wrote that, "I'm thankful for all who reached out to support and sustain feeding the food insecure in the rural areas of Morgan County. May we all find ways to show that we care." Last week, Jeff Brooks asked for healing wishes for his mother, Shirley Brooks, who broke her arm. I'm hoping that she's better. I know we all are. At this time, we also wish to hold in our hearts all who suffer in any way, and especially those who have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, along with their friends and families. We are mindful that the grim toll of those who have perished reached 200,000 this week. We'll lift up all into the thoughts and wishes of our beloved community. With the knowledge that entire communities are now suffering from the injustice of violence committed by their government, we now pray. We hold a sacred space for all who may not find it easy to share their concerns, sorrows, or even joy. We understand that not all such concerns may be ready to be spoken or shared. In the name of all that we give worth to, let us give thanks and pray for an even better world. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Christina Elliott, and I'm a member of this church. The Split the Plate recipient for the month is Fresh Fruit for Kids, holding in mind and heart the ministry that we do here together at ORUUC, and especially the children and families who benefit from the Fresh Fruit ministry. I invite you to be as generous as you can be, as the offering is now gratefully received.
Father,
It's a shaky time in our country and in our community with a lot of questions we don't know the answers to yet. But we know that if we keep digging deep and keep showing up and keep being the ones we have been waiting for, the world stands a better chance of being the more loving and just place we want it to be for us and for everyone yet to come. So today we dedicate the gifts shared to the mission of love and justice in this world and our part in that mission. Thank you.
Rooted in love, we covenant, together in peace, to face conflict with compassion, to see strength in diversity, to share laughter and tears, to honor the profound in each of us. With purpose and passion, we care for one another and grow together, rooted in love.
In a land far, far away, a wise elder who knew a great deal about people from traveling place to place arrived at a strange village. In this town, all the people were carrying what seemed to be great bundles on their backs. They couldn't look around very well, and they never looked up because of the heavy burdens they carried. Puzzled, the wise elder finally stopped a young fellow. "My good man, I am a stranger to your land, and am fascinated by these large bundles you all carry about, but never seem to put down. What is their purpose?" "Oh, these are our grudges." "My, that's a lot of grudges to collect at your age." "Oh, they're not all mine. Most of them were passed down in my family." "See that man over there? I have quite a load of grudges against his family. His great-great-grandparent called mine a horse thief when they both wanted to be elected mayor." The wise elder looked around sadly. "You all look so unhappy. Is there no way to get rid of these burdens?" "We've forgotten how," said the young fellow, shifting his load a little. "You see, at first we were proud of our grudges. Tourists came from miles around. But after a few years, Grudgeville became a dreary place. Nobody came, and we had forgotten how to stop holding our grudges." "If you really want to get rid of those grudges, I think I know 5 magic words that will do the trick." "You do? That would be a miracle. I'll go and have the mayor call the people of Grudgeville together." And off he went, as fast as his grudges would let him. The mayor lost no time calling the people to the village square. The mayor and the wise elder stood on a platform where they could see all the hunched-over villagers. When the people had quieted down, the mayor said, "Good people of Grudgeville, a wonderful thing has happened. A very wise stranger has come into our town who can tell us the magic words that will rid us of these grudges we have carried for generations. How many of you would like to be able to straighten up, have your grudges disappear, and look at the world in a whole new way? Listen to the wise words of our visitor, and then do as you are told." My friends, these are simple words, yet some people find them hard to say. I think you have the courage to speak them. The trick is that you must say them to each other and truly mean them. The first 2 words are, "I'm sorry." Can you say them? The other 3 are, "I forgive you." Can you say that? Now, say these words to each other. There was a long pause, then a low grumble from the townspeople. First one person, and then another, said the words. Soon they were all saying them to each other, quietly at first, and then louder. And then, would you believe it? Just like the wise elder predicted, the grudges disappeared. What joy there was in the town! People were heard saying, "Look how those trees have grown," and "Is that you, friend? How good to see your face." There was dancing in the streets that day, and it wasn't long before the mayor changed the name of the town to Joy Town. And now, to honor our tradition of singing the children out of the service to their own children's time under an arch formed along the center aisle, I invite you to sing along with us.
Beneath our arms we shelter you. You warm our hearts as you pass through. May your love guide you as you go, to help you learn and help you grow.
Hello, I'm Sarah Wieland. Jake asked me to speak with y'all today about art, which is a big part of my life as an artist and art educator. So please bear with me as I show you how modern public art projects can be a powerful tool for healing and peace. Artists have always explored and expressed ideas around conflict and peace. Public art has been used for centuries to memorialize figures and events post-war. It can also be used to beautify, empower, or give voice to marginalized communities and express difficult emotions. The arts can start or be a conversation, reaching across barriers in language or cultures. Though this form of communication can be powerful and affecting, it is less direct or threatening than ordinary speech. The role of art and culture in post-conflict reconstruction, peace building, and reconciliation is well documented. Recently, arts-based projects have been gaining attention and deliberate use by organized groups as an alternative to traditional methods. In the aftermath of violence and loss, survivors can be traumatized and hardly able to talk, let alone able to make sense of the many emotions they have. The work required for reconciliation, revisiting painful memories, mourning losses, acknowledging harms, etc., can be extremely difficult, and sometimes the best way for people to move forward is in a way that does not inspire so much pain and discomfort that it re-traumatizes them. I'm really excited about the new thinking in public art. Instead of traditional monuments, artists and groups are opting instead for open-endedness, complexity, ambiguity, discussion, and impermanence. Involvement and contribution from the community fosters a sense of ownership. Collaborative art making helps participants feel a part of a larger community with a shared identity and purpose. Art can give people the agency to shape their personal narratives and not only share the events of their lives or their traumas, but also connect them with others. The art-making space becomes a safe place of creation instead of destruction. One well-known participatory public art space is the Hiroshima Peace Park, dedicated to the story of a young girl named Sadako Sasaki and the 1,000 paper cranes she made. Each year, people fold and send origami cranes to remember the horrors of war and represent their hopes for future peace. Of course, we also have our own local peace memorial. This really cool installation was a giant table with chairs set up on both sides of the US-Mexican border, with hundreds of people on both sides sharing an impromptu meal and music, purely through word of mouth. On the top of the table is an image of the eyes of one of the dreamers. This crowd-funded sculpture was inspired by an ancient Persian writing and made in collaboration between Iranian and American groups. This artist covered an existing memorial to the Battle of Germantown with mirrors to engage with the community and remind viewers that our history is also part of our present. This powerful space commemorates the victims of lynchings, tells our country's history of racial terrorism, and advocates for social justice. This is an annual yarn bombing in which a local tree is covered in crocheted squares contributed by South African and English crafters. Each square is dedicated to the memory of a loved one lost to war. The South African women are also part of a project to assist them in learning a trade and gaining an income. These camps are home to Iraqi and Syrian refugees. While these two groups wouldn't normally live together, they are working here to collaborate on a unified community filled with beauty, color, and peace. There's a nonprofit Lebanese organization for drug prevention working in schools to help young refugees express their pain and trauma from the war. And this artist worked with the community to come up with ideas for this mural. The deer symbolizes grace even in difficult times. The youth all painted leaves with ideas of hope, humanity, and individual freedom. The arts have restorative and transformative potential to support conflict-affected communities, engage in dialogue, and heal the past, and even build a better future. Isn't art amazing?
Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become wholly ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and towards all living things. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life, and of the sufferings that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. Amen.
Today, I am intending to bring a message of peace, but I wanted to tell you that seeing different ones of your faces and hearing the words and the images of this service has already brought peace to me. So thank you. This is truly, even in virtual space, and maybe especially so, a participatory time where we are nourishing one another. So thank you for that. In January, I attended a lecture that I've been thinking about all year long. It was on the comparative response of different countries in the 1980s to the collapse of their respective fishing industries. That may not sound like a scintillating topic unless you're interested in the fishing industry, but stay with me. Apparently, in the 1980s, the fishing industry severely declined in 3 countries, Canada, Norway, and New Zealand. According to the lecturer, whose name is Randy Frost, the response of 2 of the countries failed, and the response of the 3rd country succeeded. In Canada and Norway, they were alarmed by the drop-off in production rates in this important industry, and the legislatures took drastic action, providing subsidies to the fishing industries, and then different kinds of incentives, first this one and that one. In any number of active ways, they went to battle with this problem, using all the instruments of the state and the financial system at their disposal, all to little avail. The fishing industries in those countries continue to slump, but in New Zealand, the response was less active and less anxious. Without getting into the details, the responses of New Zealand can be characterized as a series of moderate interventions followed by a period of observation to see how the system would respond, and then another attempt and intervention. Apparently, this less active, more watchful, and more patient response brought the replenishment of their fishing industry. In a crisis, many of us want to leap into action to stop all that's wrong, to cease all the suffering and harm. New Zealand did respond, but that response incorporated into it also rest and reflection, enough to gain some perspective as they went forward. As I heard that lecture last January, my father and stepmother had recently returned from a trip to New Zealand. Alongside reports of the natural beauty, they brought back stories of the integration of the indigenous Maori culture into how New Zealand does things these days. New Zealand, of course, was a British colony, and colonialism is a force that seeks to erase the people of the land, so as to impose an imported population and its norms and its laws. But from what I can tell, among all formerly colonized countries in the last 50 years, New Zealand has done the most to come to peace and to terms with its violent past, to make reparations with the indigenous people from whom so much was taken, and to honor and integrate Maori perspective and history into the colonialist New Zealand's history and ways of doing things, in ways that, say, the United States has not yet done with regard to indigenous people on this continent. I try to be wary of my own habit of romanticizing people without power, but if colonialism relies on machines and laws and violent force, what is gained in drawing from the resource of indigenous culture is awareness of a deep history and an interrelationship with the earth and the cosmos that can broaden perspective and invite more contemplative and maybe more effective response. Alongside whatever they were doing with the fishing industry in the 1980s, New Zealand was also hosting a religious conversation. Representatives of the Anglican Church of New Zealand and Polynesia in the 1980s were seeking to revise and update their traditional Book of Common Prayer, in part in large effort to incorporate Maori culture and language. The commission worked for years and years with large committee meetings around big tables and rooms, working at this volume. At the very last meeting, when they were preparing the final text to send it off to be published, the secretary of the commission, a quiet priest named John Williamson, led the group in prayer. The prayer had quite an effect on the weary group. In fact, one of the people present suggested that this prayer should also be included in the text that they were about to publish, this book of prayers. Reverend Williamson, intending only to use the prayer for the meeting, had already thrown it away, so they had to fish the prayer out of the garbage can and to uncrumple it. It's a prayer for the nighttime, for people who are tired. Even though right now it's morning, I want to share it with you. It says, goes like this: Lord, it is night. The night is for stillness. Let us be still in the presence of God. It is night after a long day. What has been done has been done. What has not been done has not been done. Let it be. The night is dark. Let our fears of the darkness of the world and of our own lives rest in you. The night is quiet. Let the quietness of your peace enfold us, all dear to us, and all who have no peace. The night heralds the dawn. Let us look expectantly to a new day, new joys, new possibilities. In your name we pray, amen. That's what they fished out of the garbage can in that room. In the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur begins this evening and lasts until tomorrow evening, closing out the annual High Holy Days. Yom Kippur is an invitation to atonement, which is the creation of peace in relationships where there has been strife. I think of the Jewish concept of shalom, which means something more than only peace, more than only ease or some sterile absence of action. I understand shalom to mean the flourishing of life, the presence of nonviolent, creative, joyful, uplifting conditions in the relationships between peoples, between people and earth, between the earth and cosmos, between the cosmos and the divine. When I read that prayer for the night from the New Zealand prayer book, I receive and experience a glimpse, a taste of shalom, of my own life and its effort and exhaustion, held in the embrace and the strength of some larger peace and a longer perspective than my own present anxieties. Maybe all of us in some way dream of and desire that kind of deep peace. Toward that end, we read in self-help books and on spirituality websites about the importance of self-care and of personal spiritual practice, and they are not wrong, but turning away from relationship and only ever inward is never about the creation of shalom. Shalom is forged in the context of relationship. So while we may need a moment to catch our breath or recover ourselves, the life we are wanting and the world we are wanting is only discovered through sustained engagement in the spirit of shalom toward the vision of shalom, the deep, peaceful flourishing between you and me and between us and all. That peace can't be attained by withdrawal from the world or by claims of innocence. Too much in this world that we love has been broken. Too much has been smashed, too much violated. There is no turning back. There is only looking at the world as it is and our lives as they are and coming to understand our part in creating shalom, not waiting for others to go first, nor shrinking from the complexity, nor pretending that we find ourselves on a level playing field or in easy circumstances, but seeing things as they are and understanding that things as they are is always so much wider and deeper than this present moment and this present crisis. As we creatively repair and restore what has been broken, as we patiently tend the gardens that have been overrun and almost destroyed, we may be tempted to rush in with solutions and quick fix ideas like Canada and Norway in their fishing industry crisis 35 years ago. But shalom comes about more gently and persistently, giving ourselves to it every day, acting, listening, waiting, responding, trusting, risking, observing, trying. This is true in our households as it is in the world. This past week, the recent past moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Alandria Williams, died suddenly at only the age of 41. Alandria grew up and continued to be active at our neighbor Tennessee Valley UU Church in Knoxville, even as they became a national leader in the denomination and in the movement for Black lives. Alandria was African-American, queer, living with disabilities and with chronic illness, and brought wisdom from those identities into every encounter as a mentor, a leader, a teacher, and a person tenaciously on the path to justice and joy. Alandria also embodied a generous love that let nobody out. This week marks 250 years of universalism on this continent since John Murray, the founder of Universalism in America, arrived on these shores in 1770. But Alandria's life and witness was not about looking backwards or preserving heritage. Instead, they drew from our history and tradition to testify to the universalist power of the love that leaves nobody out. So today I'm thinking about New Zealand and the work they've done to decolonize their culture and their religion, to make peace with their past, as we all must do. and how it allows them to respond to challenge in a supple and effective way. I'm thinking about how that work of atonement and reparations is necessary in moving toward the peace of shalom in our families and the world, and how it isn't easy, and how it's going to take time. I'm thinking of all of you and of all of us wrestling with the questions and dilemmas before us and the pain of not knowing always the right thing to do. And I'm thinking of my friend Alandria, who died this past week. And I want to share with you words from an interview Alandria gave this past May. They said, "What is lifting up my spirit," this is Alandria's words, "what is lifting up my spirit is holding that I am unbound. What is lifting up my spirit is that I will break the chains. What is lifting up my spirit is that I am deserving of a 100% radical love, care, and worthiness. And I will accept nothing less, and that all of my young people also deserve that. And everybody deserves that. And if we're going to actually move and believe that everybody deserves it, then we actually all have to be unbound. We all must have to have the chains broke. We all must move differently. None of us can be worried about all the petty randomness that we get stuck on every day. And we all have to be like, what is my role to play in unbreakableness? We will continue to be imperfect. We'll continue to falter. But out of all that's been broken and lost and taken from us, if we're going to create a new heaven on earth and the conditions of shalom, I believe Alandria's question is right. What is my role and what is your role to play in unbreakableness? This week and every week, may you live with that question and answer it with your life.
Today, we have been imagining what deep peace within us and between us could be like. As we think how to take this imagination out into the world, out into our week, out into our lives, I invite you to visualize what your own life would be with more rest, freed of anxiety and fear. I invite you to imagine your relationships and your community free from those things as well. Now, as we all know, wishing won't make that true. There is an effort needed from each of us as well. But in these times, as we dream of a deep peace within and among us, and a time when what is peace would prevail, let us make a practice this week of noticing when and where we find moments or pockets of peace in our lives. And notice when we find measures of peace deep within ourselves. Notice what we can do to create more of that, more peace within our days, within ourselves, and the creative peace of justice within our relationships and our world too.
Go now in peace, go now in peace, go now and show the world you care. Go now in peace, go now in peace, go and be the change you want to share. Go now with hope. Go now with hope. Go now and show the world you care. Go now with hope. Go now with hope. Go and be the change you want to share. Go now with love. Go now with love. Go now and show the world you care. Go now with love. Go now with love. Go and be the change you want to share. Go and be the change you want to share.
As we go from this hour, may we be fools for love and pilgrims for justice. And until we meet again, may we walk, move, and roll in beloved community. Go in peace.